friend of mine used
We ready, council? All right, I got 6 o'clock. It's September 15th, and we'll open this study session with our glorious finance person, I believe. The floor is yours.
Good evening, council. How are you this evening? Ready to talk about some budget?
We're excited.
2026 already. Feels like we're still in the middle of or beginning of 25. So we have a little bit of a different process this year. We eliminated the budget advisory committee for the year, and we're going to be working through these sessions together in our work session. So tonight is mostly a kickoff, high level, as well as giving the next steps and talking about revenues and how we fund the things we're going to be requesting. So May through July, our departments send us budget requests that identify their needs for the coming year and anything additional above and beyond what they would normally need. September through October, this is the meetings that we're having now. We come to council and we have discussions about what is being requested. And then November through December is our public hearings and budget approvals. There are required to have 3 public hearings per statute, and then we do need to have a budget adopted by the end of December. So the budget process, we establish broad goals to guide decision-making, develop approaches to achieve those goals, develop a budget consistent with approaches to achieve those goals, and then evaluate performance and make adjustments. This is very, very high level. This is what we always hope for. It doesn't always look like this, but this is our guide. So we did have a couple study sessions this last year to go over the council retreat. Council retreats where you guys talked about your broad goals and directives, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But these study sessions, we're going to go over the 26 preliminary budget. Council will be presented the official preliminary budget at the next meeting. You'll get a packet. I will print it on big paper so you don't have to look at the little numbers. And then we will have meetings to discuss if we need to have additional meetings outside of the work sessions that we've planned, then we can absolutely schedule that. Again, we have 3 months to do this. And then the budget can be modified per any direction that's given during these study sessions to then modify the budget before final adoption. So back when we did our council retreat, the primary focus or areas of focus from that survey came back as street maintenance and paving, city economic development, as well as an emphasis, I spelled emphasis wrong, I apologize, on parks and recreation facilities. And then going back to our vision, that was, some of you may or may not remember, I know we talked about it in the council retreat. This was a long process with the navigators that went out and gathered the data from folks as to where we want to send the city: prosperity, community, well-being, growth, and identity. I won't spend too much time on this because I know we talked about it at the retreat. And then we do adopt at the fund level, and we do have 24 different funds. My ear is ringing. So we have our governmental funds, which include our general fund, parks fund, insurance reserve, our left one reserve, economic stabilization fund, our special revenue funds, which include our street fund, drug investigation, lodging tax, our capital funds that pay for our capital, traffic, park, and impact fees, real estate excise tax, capital projects. We have our debt service, and then we have our proprietary funds with the storm, water, and sewer. And then we also have our internal service fund to fund our technology and our vehicle replacements. Looking at funding of city operations, you have our citizens who pay us utility, property, and sales tax, and that goes into our general fund bucket, and then that pays for our police, street, parks, and community development. Those are the primary focuses of our governmental funds, and then from there, you have your support departments, which include finance, admin services, city clerk, human resources, our court, legal, fire marshal's office, business licensing, building, engineering, city manager's office, and communications in public information. So there's a lot of things that your governmental funds pay for. And then looking at our projections for 2026, our total tax revenue is slated to be about 55% of the general fund, with utility tax being 3.2 million, property tax at 4.5 million, and then sales tax at 6.5 million. The utility tax rates that we charge for electric, natural gas, garbage, cable, telephone, and those are all set by RCW and municipal code at those various rates. And then water, sewer, and drainage, those are set by resolution. And interestingly enough, water, sewer, and drainage is the only utility tax that doesn't have a max, which is funny. So. Looking at our property tax, it is 17.7% of the general fund revenue. We have the option to increase 1% or the implicit price deflator. That doesn't come out until, should be relatively soon that we get that, but we don't have that yet. The approval is through a council ordinance. Looking at our revenue projections, the total amount that we would get from the 1% is $43,000. And then our new construction that we do have a preliminary estimate in on what that will bring in for the new construction in the city is about $171,000. And as we've talked about before, the increase of 1% doesn't keep up with the actual cost inflation across your funds. By not taking the 1%, the new construction incoming has a lesser value as the levy rate continues to go down because the new construction comes in at the previous levy rate in the calculation. So just looking at property tax, this may be a refresher for some of you and maybe new to others of you. If you have a pretend city that has a budget levy base of $3,240, you think of the city as a pie. And a way to split that pie is based on assessed value. So if all things are equal, each of these properties are valued at $405,000 for total assessed value of the city being $2.4 million. The ways that property tax can increase so that budget levy base can get bigger is the 1% increase, new construction, or annexation. With the new construction and annexation, more residents come and more slices of pie. Well, the pie only gets marginally bigger. That's why the city's millage rate continues to decrease each year with the addition of more residents. So looking at that calculation, the levy base divided by assessed value times 1,000 is what equals your millage rate. So in this scenario, if your levy base is $3,240 divided by the $2.4 million assessed value times 1,000, your millage rate is $1.35. Now, say your AV increased to $6 million, but your budget levy base stays the same at $3,240. Your millage rate is 54 cents. However, the amount people pay continues to stay that 405 based on the calculation. So your millage rate is just a function of the calculation because the actual property tax is based on the budget levy base. So we collect, say, 4.5 million in property tax, and that gets split amongst our residents. If AV decides to go up 200%, that doesn't mean everybody's property taxes are going up 200%. So when you get your property tax bill in the mail, that doesn't necessarily, the increase of your assessed value is not the increase to your property tax itself. That's just the increase to your AV because your neighbors, all of their assessed values are going up as well. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And as you can see, there's an inverse relationship between assessed values and tax rates. As your assessed values go up, your tax rates go down. And this is what we like to call, or Chris calls, the story of one home. This is one in particular home within the city of Battleground that we have actual data for, that back in 1992, the millage rate was close to $4.50, and they paid just under $500 a year in property tax. And you can see that that amount over the last 30 years has remained relatively flat. So regardless of inflation, that home is paying less than they did back in 1992 in annual property tax. Yes, Troy.
Is that city property tax graph in real dollars or inflation adjusted?
That is in real dollars. So I do have an inflationary graph that I don't have on this presentation, but I can bring it back.
It'd be awesome to have that on the website, I think.
I don't disagree with you. So looking at our property tax projections for 2026, you can see that we have, if you look at the far right column of the 2026 estimated, you have your base levy of $4.3 million, and that can increase by the 1%, which is the 43,000. You have that estimated new construction of $170 million. Yes, $170 million worth of homes have come to the city, which gets us $170,000 in new construction assessed value. So the total estimated property tax for 2026 at this moment is 4.5 million. Our current assessed value, again, preliminary estimates, the assessor does not like to give us to us until right before we need to start doing our ordinances. But as of right now, it's 4.7 million. So total AV change in the city of Battleground is 9.2%. So our estimated millage rate for 2026 is 96 cents. So what does this mean to the individual home? So you have no increase up at the top to get us a total estimated levy base of 4.5 million. And then with the 1%, 4.5 million, I had to actually extend the number of decimals I showed you, because if I didn't, it would have been 96 cents and 96 cents for the millage rate. So looking at actual dollars, as you go down the list of what is below, the highlighted blue is what these homes would be paying in 2025. So if a home is valued at $450,000 in 2025, they are currently paying $451.20. If that same home had a 5% assessed value increase in 2026, it would pay $451.60 at a no 1% being taken, or $455.94 if we do take the 1%. So looking at the last column, you can see the difference for each of the various scenarios of assessed value increasing, the difference between taking the 1% and not taking the 1%. So the average is between $4 to $7, depending upon how high your assessed value is for your home. We're still waiting to get our download from the county to see what our median home value, assessed value is. Last year, it was $431 or $431,000 was the assessed value, which is not the same as market value or Zillow value. Assessed value is very different. It's usually about $100,000 difference between the two, with market value being higher in the current market. Are there any questions about this? I know this is a lot of numbers for this slide. And again, you'll see this again as we continue through this process. Yep. So how does the city of Battleground compare? If you have a resident, we'll call her Jane, and the home is valued at $500,000 and they have an average use of city utilities. Over on the bottom right, it shows you how much they would be paying in the various jurisdictions throughout the city. And the graph shows you can visually see where Battleground sits. So Camas, Vancouver, Washougal, and Yakult are all higher than us. And then La Center and Ridgefield are lower than us. Looking at sales tax. Sales tax is a little bit of a We wish we had a crystal ball to know exactly what the economy is going to do. We definitely don't want to overestimate our sales tax, thinking that we're going to continue with a 3% increase. A lot of our sales tax in the city of Battleground actually is derived for the construction industry. So if things start to decline, then we lose about $1 million of sales tax activity. It's also consumer driven, so real estate or retail, depending upon how the economy is doing. So we actually, based upon where we were at the time I did the projections, we built in a negative 1% for sales tax. So keeping us relatively consistent with what we've received in the last couple years. If it comes in higher, that's fantastic, but we definitely don't want to overestimate our revenues because then we get over our skis with expenses and we don't want to do that.
Megan,
Yes.
question for you on the sales tax. Sales tax versus utility tax. Which one is more stable right now?
Utility tax is relatively stable because people are not going to stop using their utilities. It's not really, while people can fluctuate their usage when it comes to water and their power, you don't usually see a decline in those unless it's telephone. Telephone utility tax, we have seen a decline, but your water, sewer, drainage, cable, as well as electric and garbage and natural gas, I have not seen the decreases. So I would say that's relatively more stable than sales tax.
When was the last time we saw a decrease in our sales tax?
Last year,
Last year?
mhm,
Okay.
which was where we started to see, which is why we projected it the way we did. We started to see that decrease and we're like, okay, we're seeing a little bit of an increase this year. However, like I said, it's dependent upon so many factors and we don't fully know the results of what's going to happen with the economy. And so having a slight decrease to it, we had some anomalies, which I have, I think on the next, nope. This is the one. So on the right, you can see kind of where in 2022 and 2023, we were up a little over 6 million and then it decreased off and in 24 and then it decreased again in 25. And so that's why we did the forecasting of a slight decrease.
Do you think that's mostly contributed to the housing side? Building, what, or, because there's no way for us to track individually,
Right.
what does Walmart do this year from last year? Correct?
I am able to do that and I do that. So I am able to see vendor to vendor. I can't share that because
Yeah.
I signed a confidentiality agreement. But a lot of that decrease has a lot to do with construction. So there are some large projects that were going on and even the city pays taxes. So while we had the 502, 503 project going on, you had the shared use pathway going, we saw an increase in those sales tax because then it comes back to us when we're paying those sales tax to those contractors. We do have another large project going right now. So construction continues to be a big piece of our sales tax. And I don't have it on here, but when I look at our increase, when it jumped in 2020 to 2022, the driving factor was construction. So at some point, I don't know when, obviously we don't have a crystal ball when that will come down, but we try to be conservative in those estimates. So I don't want to say, yes, construction's going to continue to be what it is. We do definitely see retail continuing to be strong and our food sales continuing to be strong. But this particular industry, we don't know what's going to happen with it.
I just think it's interesting, and I think, this is something that maybe we should communicate a little bit more too. Everyone assumes that all of our taxes come mostly from property tax, and I think that we pay so much in property tax, and I think it's interesting to see that it's about 1.5 to 1, and where this money's coming from, and point that out that sales tax is bigger than property tax in the city. So thank you.
Absolutely. And you're very correct. Up until COVID, really, this was almost a perfect third. So a third was property tax, a third was sales tax, and a third was utility tax. And now you can see that sales tax is overtaking by almost half, which is great because that means share the burden as folks come in. They're helping offset the cost of everything, the police as well as your infrastructure. So that's positive. Some other cities don't have that availability to them, and they're highly dependent upon property tax, which is, if you look at the different jurisdictions and how they're primarily funding their general fund, you will see differing percentages, and it's just based upon the demographics as far as what they have available. Like Camas has one of the highest assessed value when it comes to property tax because of their area, but they also have a high sales tax industry because of the industries in their city. So it's a very interesting thing to see. Yes.
I'm not sure if you can even answer this, but I'm curious if you know what kind of an impact to the sales tax revenue will have for places like Tractor Supply Company coming in and like Super Chicks and IHOP. Like, how big of an impact do you think something like that brings in?
It will be an impact for sure. It will be interesting to see, which we will know once they're in. But what we've seen with gas stations and coffee shops as well. Those are two things that continue to be built in the city. And you would think that there'd be an offsetting decrease in another business, right? Or like the grocery store is offset. And you don't really see that. It's additional. And I don't know where these people are coming from to do this, but you just see additional funds coming in that's almost equivalent to the one that's existing. So it is very interesting. But yes, I do think it will be an impact, and I think it will be similar to Wilco. That would be my assumption.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Not Costco. Okay. So with that, when people pay their sales tax, and I know we talk about this quarterly, but it's not just the city that gets that sales tax. We actually get a very, very small percentage of what that total 8.6% is. For every dollar, we get less than a penny. So looking at our other funding sources, we have our licenses and permits, grants and shared state revenues, charges for goods and services, fines and penalties, hotel motel taxes, real estate excise taxes, and then impact fees. And this is what ultimately funds our governmental activities. And these are just a summary. Like I said, taxes, licenses and permits include building permits, building plan checks, intergovernmental grants, and court cost reimbursements. So a court does get shared between the Center of Ridgefield and us based upon a 3-year rolling average of total case filings. Charges for services, we have been getting the school resource officer reimbursement, zoning and subdivision fees, and then also our indirect cost allocation. For those not familiar with what that is, all of those support departments that support all the functions of the city, we have various factors that measure, for example, us first three that are sitting at this table, our salaries is spread amongst all the divisions depending upon what piece of what we're doing for those departments, because we're supporting all the departments. We wouldn't exist if it weren't for them. And so we have a plan. If you're interested in all of that, I have a policy that you can read. Super interesting for us math people. And then that gets spread. So that's what that cost allocation is. So it's not the general fund bearing the burden for all those support departments. It gets spread amongst the proprietary funds as well. Fines and forfeitures, traffic infractions, DUIs, miscellaneous revenue, including building rent, our city hall leases, transfers from other funds such as lodging tax. So that's ultimately what funds our general fund. And this is one of my favorite slides. And it's something at the front counter that we get sometimes. Well, we pay property tax. Why are we paying utility bills? And so we cannot legally use water, sewer, drainage, any of our utility fees that come in to supplement anything that happens in a general fund. I would get in very big trouble with our auditors if we did that. So it's a big no-no. It's very separate. The core services stay separate from our utility funds, and we track them separately. So looking at our revenue considerations, again, we've already talked about property tax, sales tax, and utility tax, the fuel tax. We did have an increase because of what the state did. I believe it brings us about $25,000 estimated to the city in the next year. Building activity, new construction with the interest rates, population growth, that's very dependent upon the economy. We have not seen a slowdown in our home sales. So again, we haven't seen a slowdown in our building permits either. We'll get to that slide in a moment, but we're projecting more. Looking at our fees, CPI, cost inflation, cost recovery, our grants, we have been fortunate in all the grants we've received and continue to receive. Staff does a great job doing that, but it is very competitive because everybody's looking for money to fund their projects. Cash reserves, we do have general fund cash reserve, we have our stabilization fund, and then other fund balances that are restricted. Capital financing, we've been lucky in not having to do that yet, but I anticipate at some point we will likely have to, depending upon the direction council goes with the various projects that are on the table in future years, not this year. And then looking at our stormwater and sewer rate increases, and then any new sources of revenue. So you can have voted taxes, and then we do have the ability for that new public safety sales tax that the council can approve for 0.1%. And that was a new bill that was issued in 2025.
What would that number be?
The estimated is about 650,000.
That's the same as our TBD, correct?
Correct. And we do, if we were going to do that, I know we talked about it at the council retreat as well. We would have to do a public hearing. So we'd have to set the public hearing, hold the public hearing, and we do have to have it to Department of Revenue 75 days in advance of being able to collect. So the earliest we would be able to do that would be for the April 2026 collection. So if we did it before the end of the year, we could collect in April, if that makes sense. Are there any questions about any of these before I move on? Okay. So looking at development projections, Kristen helped me out with this, looking at what was in the hopper. It is estimated, again, don't hold us to these numbers. We don't have a crystal ball, but about 188 residential single-family homes, one multifamily project of 95 units. General fund related development revenue is estimated to be about 1.2 million. The utility SDC is about 5.1 million. TIF is about 981,000, and then park impact fee is about 1.2 million. And these are actual projections for 2026 on what we expect to receive if this happens. And then looking at our fee schedule, we increased our fees. We'll come to council for approval, but this is what we're recommending, 2.7% based upon the CPI. And then looking at our utility rates, we do rate studies, and we do those in-house to save some money. Looking at a water increase of 4%, sewer 7%, and then storm drainage of 3.5%, which looking at utility rates and percentages doesn't really give you the meat of what the increase would be. So looking at 2026, if you look at the top section, it gives you what the estimated dollar amount would be for each of the utilities. So the average bill would be about $115 compared to $109 for this year. So looking at what that means as an increase, the overall bill increase would be about $6.25. And then per Cherish's request a few years ago, I do include this little section. Had we kept utility tax at 22%, that would shows you what the bill would be. So about $125 versus the $115.
What is our percentage right now?
12.
And what would 1% be per year then? Because I'm not going to figure it out right here.
I don't have access to that. I can get that for you.
Thank you.
So one of the first steps we do when we're in our budget process on the staff side is do a budget forecast. So we like to look out into the future to look to see what our trajectory is. If we're slated to go into a deficit, structural deficit is when your operational expenditures exceed your revenues that come in, and look to see where we're at. And then the budget requests go out and then we update that. It's based on history, known and estimated increases. And then again, like I said, it gets updated. So then we can see if we can afford a position to even ask for a position, or if we can't, or if we need a revenue source for that. This is how we prevent those structural deficits and large cuts that other jurisdictions have to do. Again, we want to live within our means. I think Battleground's done an excellent job having development pay for development and only biting off what we can chew as far as staying within our means. And with that, that's all I have for this evening as a kickoff. Do you have any questions?
I just want to, spent the last 2 weeks talking quite a bit about this kind of stuff. And, I want to tell you, thank you for the work that you've done with the city and with the, we are one of the few cities that I know that are not in a position where we are laying people off. We're starting to see that more and more, and I think you've done a really good job. And I think there's some opportunity for us to continue to do some things that we got back in our survey for the city. And it's nice to be able to look at this and see that we're not hurting and trying to make decisions of what departments we're gutting or cutting, or I think it was about 2012, Mark, if you remember, maybe 13, where we had to cut some out of your guys' departments, and that's a tough deal. And I appreciate the work that you guys have done, and being able to be fairly conservative, but continue to provide the services we need in the city.
Thank you. And then I do have an answer to your question about 1%. I just did it really fast. Estimate about 136,000 for all three utilities combined is about 1% a year.
Council, chime in with questions, please.
And I didn't want to inundate, like I said, with all the expenditures and so forth. So that will come. I will try to get you guys out the preliminary budget, the packet into your inboxes next week, early next week. So then you'll have a full week before our study session. Again, as much as I present, what you want to focus on is definitely what we can present. We have a lot of budget line items. And so we obviously can't hit every single one in detail in the time that we have. However, I'm always available, and what you want to see, what you have questions on, you guide our conversation. It's not really, I don't want to just present at you, ask me questions, and we can have a conversation, because that's definitely what this is supposed to be.
Megan, I'll just kind of echo what Deputy Mayor said. Thank you for all the efforts. They do not go unnoticed, and I'm sure by staff as well. Just a couple things, point of clarification, just so we can air it out here publicly. The 1% and the assessed value truly does not put much of a burden individually on taxpayers, but as a whole, and the assessed value helps recoup some of the inflation for the city.
Correct. I have a visual in my head. I wish I could figure out how to make it real, but imagine you have a pie that you're serving your family, and that pie gets incrementally just a little bit bigger, but you have 10 more people to share that slice of that pie with. So the more people that come in, the less of a burden you have. But if those people don't come in at the same rate the other people come in at, it's almost like they're not paying their fair share, if that makes sense. So they're coming in at a discount. So like Mayor McCoy talked about the inflation piece of it, which actually, since we have time,
I think the better analogy is the berries going into the pie instead of cutting the pie up.
Oh, there you go. That's a good analogy too. Give me a second and I can pull up the inflation chart because it's,
You get the same pie at the end, but you're putting in less berries.
I'm sharing now. I have it up. 1 second. Need some Jeopardy music. Okay. So you can see this is the inflationary chart. Boop, boop. So back in 1992, which actually may be better just to show you the graph. This individual home was paying $483.67, which with inflation to, well, this would have been based on 24 because I haven't updated it for 26, $1,040.55. So as you go down, while their rate decreased of how much they were paying annually, inflation, obviously $1 back in 92 is worth very different than it is in 2026. And the thing that's also interesting that I do have on here that I don't have on any of my slides is in 2017, this home sold for $317,000, yet assessed value was $252,000. And then in 2023, assessed value is $450,000, but it sold for $546,000. So this is when we're talking about AV, it is not the same as what you're seeing these homes sell for. And again, AV is just a way to slice the pie. It's not the drive. It is a driving factor of what you pay, but everybody is using the same, it's the same method calculation that they're coming up with. If that makes sense.
Sure, sorry, about the different rates that people pay, like prime and things like that, how that goes towards the total assessed value of the city and how that's calculated differently.
Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what you mean?
Isn't that what prime when it's, no, hold on, it's not. When's R7, it's acreage, remember, isn't it?
Oh,
prime?
best use, the
Yeah,
best
they
use.
call it prime, right?
I don't know what they call it.
Anyways,
will
how
believe
does
you, it's a
that
prime.
factor into the budget?
The county is responsible 100% with anything to do with assessed value. We have no say. We don't see it. The extract that I'm getting, I'm not getting from the assessor's office. I'm getting it from their GIS department. They handle all of that. And so for us, we don't have anything, yes, when you zone it that way, but then there's others that in your example, that are zoned what you're saying, but their assessed value is different than another parcel that's the same. And those are great assessor questions. Why is this property this and mine is this versus us as the city? So we just base it upon the estimates we get from the county assessor. They say our AV is going to be this, and that's what drives the calculation to get the millage rate. But we as the city set that budget levy base. That's our job. So we set that, and then the AV just helps calculate the millage rate, but it doesn't. Our responsibility is the base. Because again, even if AV went, say it went negative and it went down to 2 million or 2 billion for the city, we would still collect the same amount. Just the millage rate would be different. And it's a hard concept to understand, is that your millage rate is not how much you're paying. It's just a way to calculate how much you're paying to the city or how much the city is collecting. It shouldn't be as complicated as it is. Or to explain, but
Just another curious kind of question, comment. So if somebody does have an assessed value and they challenge it with the county, and the Board of Equalization comes back and
Mhm.
says that you're right, your valuation is less,
Mhm.
how does that affect the city's budget?
It doesn't by much. So what happens is so from the county, we get a report monthly that shows how much property tax they collected, what the adjustments were for that period. So those adjustments could be a variety of things. They could be what you're talking about. They could be an undercharge and go the opposite way. And so those adjustments happen and we true it up, but the nexus is very small. We're talking at maybe 10,000 during the year that they do. Because it again changes that budget levy base. So the overall AV piece has no bearing on what we're collecting.
And it only changes it for that year.
Correct. And then as we move forward, and then we use the actual. So at the end of the year, after they've trued everything up, that's what we're budgeting based on after they've done those adjustments.
And assuming the Board of Equalization only lowers your bill.
Yeah. Yeah. who
They can
knows?
raise it.
That is a risk. Thank you.
Welcome.
Council, any other further questions? It does get easier every year, I think. Which says no. All right, well, with no questions, we'll go ahead and close this work session and we'll open the regular meeting at 7 p.m. We got a clock now. I'm so excited. Well, that's because it is electronic. That's because the way it is. It's slow though compared to my phone. See, my phone says 7. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I have 7 o'clock. It is September 15th, 2025. I'll call this regular Battleground City Council meeting to order. If you're able, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance. Thank you for that. And if we could have roll, please.
Mayor McCoy,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bowman,
Here.
Councilmember Kuipers,
Here.
Councilmember Ferrer. Present. Councilmember DeRochers.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Overholser.
Here.
And the clerk is here. The roll has been called.
Thank you. Next up, we have agenda approval. I would entertain a motion for agenda approval with a slight change.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to amend the meeting agenda to remove the closed door session at the end of business.
Second.
Who was that second?
Me.
Motions by Councilmember Overholser, second by Councilmember DeRochers. For those that aren't aware, exempt meetings aren't required to be on the agenda. We just do that for transparency. So there is no business that is going to be done or not done regardless. So with that, we have a motion to approve the agenda minus the exempt session. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that moves us on to council member reports, and I believe we have a couple.
All right, I'll just
Start
kick
us
this
off.
here. This is EMS 2. We actually met earlier today. And we approved the 2025 EMS system design decisions. That's a mouthful. That is the first step to procuring the RFP with AMR. And it outlined the structure and design behind that. Again, all the credit goes to the work group for EMS2 that was made up that did the majority of the legwork on that. So that has been approved. Also, upcoming items, we will be seeing an ILA, an updated ILA for the cities as part of that RFP process. That's all I have.
So nothing to report on Echo. They ended up canceling the meeting. The second update is for the most recent one, which was the Urban County Policy Board. I wrote some notes so I wouldn't forget. It's added a new public service application element. Those services will include transportation and health services, including mental health and dental, food assistance, housing, counseling, and childcare. The applications are going to start October 1st. And they've increased the homeowner rehab from 250,000 to 400,000. And just to give you, the average assistance is over right now 35,000 per household. So I was excited to see that. So our seniors who need a lot of roofing and stuff like that, repairs, it'll help them out. Then for the C-Tran Composition Review Committee, there was a motion at the end of the meeting to move forward with its 3-3-3 plan. That was the 3 on county, 3 for Vancouver and 3 representatives for us smaller guys, us smaller cities, with a plan or with a request that WASDOT temporarily suspend C-Tran grant funding decisions until the issue of the board composition can be resolved. It was the committee's hope that the returned request with an attached letter written by the mayor of Ridgefield would explain the position of the cities or the smaller cities on why they chose 333. And the small city representatives felt like having 4 seats for Vancouver and 3 seats from county would give Vancouver the majority of vote because 3 out of 5 of the districts are, for county districts, that is, fall within the city of Vancouver. And the committee felt like that would violate the state law by having single city representation on the board. So that's why they ended up going with that. That's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, no report for RTC Ridgefield covered for us. I haven't got a report from them. Did have a C-Tran meeting that kind of dovetails into the previous Composition Review Committee report. C-Tran passed a motion to advise legal to file a stay with WASDOT to stay any funding decisions. Don't know if they'll get that back in time. Essentially, let me back up. So WASDOT, per the new RCW passed, I think in April of this year, or whenever it was signed, says C-Tran must have representative representation, population representative. How C-Tran forms their board is the aforementioned board composition committee. They have no budget, no legal, nothing. So that's their entire, how would you say, mission is just to form the makeup of the C-Tran board. However, C-Tran is being told, we're going to withhold funds from you if your board doesn't comply with the state law. C-Tran has no control over how that board is formed. So if you're not confused yet, run for city council. So what C-Tran has done is advise legal, or well, it made a motion and I voted in the affirmative to ask for a stay. It doesn't mean it's going to be successful like any legal proceeding. Here's the real rub. The law says you must be in compliance by October 1st. If C-Tran is not in compliance by October 1st, grant funding can be withheld at any point past that. So you have until October 1st to get in compliance. After that, you're on a, I don't know, you know, you're just hoping. A lot of those grants are merit-based. You can read that as political. So I have my doubts of how successful C-Tran may be in the future. I don't know. That they're very well-run transportation compared to especially some to the south. So I believe there is one more meeting of the Composition Review Committee. I'm not sure if I can make it. If I can't, I'm sure council member can. But this council might want to consider direction because the Composition Review Committee is going to need to retain a lawyer. That money has to come from this council. Well, every council, not just ours. So that is nothing that's funded by C-Tran because it's not part of C-Tran. So if we're going to fight this, we need to be ready to write a check for it. Does that make sense? So I think it would be helpful to those of us that sit in that committee to get some feedback from people on this council. As far as the point about county representing the city, I'm the one who actually asked for those numbers and started that argument because I was concerned about that. If the county doesn't vote as a block, who are they representing? They should, you know, then they're just representing their district. So that was my concern. The county councilors have been on record saying they represent the entire county. So my question would be, when this goes before a court and they call up the county councilors and say, well, I'm voting based on the county, how well is that going to go for the board formation committee? Because the board formation committee's argument is, no, the county's voting based on what district they're in. So I have my concerns about that. Just to say the quiet part out loud, this law was a political tool. And I think it's going to be used in that way. And I don't think that 333 is going to be successful. Just that's a personal opinion. Thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. Could be wrong again. So I think this council should probably give some direction. To we want to put our money where our mouth is. Do we want to go 333 or 432? 432 meaning 2 small cities instead of 3.
So would our legal bills be based upon the 432 or the?
Fighting for the 333. If there's no legal,
But I mean, does Vancouver then
Oh.
cover, you know,
there's
30% of the legal bills according to what they want?
I'm guessing Vancouver's going to say, we're not going to spend a dime. This is probably going to be split between the small cities. That's just my guess. I can't imagine. Why would Vancouver put in legal money? So, and I don't know how much it's going to cost. I've asked a couple lawyers for maybe pro bono, but I mean,
Good luck.
yeah,
Are you
So-
asking us now?
yes. So just chime in, please. I think we need some direction.
I don't think it's gonna be a fight we're gonna win just because, like you said, it is a political thing right now. And I think it's gonna be very costly for us and for especially if the county in Vancouver are not gonna really jump in on this, then it's literally just gonna be the small cities fighting a battle that we probably are not gonna win. So I don't know. I don't know how we do it any different. Just follow the state law, I guess, and try and change it if we don't like it.
I just wanted to share, there was, just so everybody has a piece of the picture or the puzzle. There has been a letter written by the mayor of Ridgefield, in case everybody hasn't got to see it yet. I'm sure everybody on this board has, so I probably don't even have to mention this. And there has been, something coming out of Camas too, right? And so do we know, the question I would have is, so do you remember what that date was that we're going to be having that next committee? I can't remember.
September 20.
Oh, wait,
Yes,
maybe I wrote it. Maybe I wrote it. Cause what day would it be on, a Monday or a Wednesday?
25th.
Is it? Oh, yeah, there it is. C-Tran composition from 5:30. So we don't have any other meetings between now and then. So,
Yeah, if I'm in town, I'll make it. If not, I'll give you a call.
yeah, okay.
But I think regardless of who's there, we should have direction.
Yeah.
Because just because of the potential financial impact. And again, I don't know this for a fact.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yeah.
ask a few questions? Is there a way that we can get some kind of estimate? And do we have a kitty for these protections of if we want to fight them? I mean, where would this money come from? Do we have?
General fund, I would imagine. There's no budget for this because it's not a funded item.
Yeah, I understand that. So, I would be persuaded. You know, Ridgefield has stuck their neck out. The smaller cities have stuck their neck out. I would be very curious to see if we could get some kind of approximate.
No,
Well, I know
it-
you don't, but I mean.
I don't think anybody does.
anybody-
I've asked the question. Nobody knows. It depends. It's
I
the
don't know.
undefeated person in this war is billable hours.
Yeah, well, I know that everybody says, well, just, take it and fight it. I've been following this and I feel that these cities should put their money where their mouth is and at least try as hard as we can. And if the final thing says no, I think we owe it to ourselves to stick our neck out there and fight a little bit harder for it. I mean, we have a good case, there's good explanation. And so that being said, I would be more very inclined to say, I'd like to go further on this.
So having an attorney I would think that they would give us direction both ways and let us know if maybe it isn't a good idea, right? So it's not necessarily a fight. It could be, can you win this? And they would let us know, right? Like, or would they, you think they just drag it on and billable hours?
Every attorney thinks they can win.
There's not an argument an attorney doesn't think they can win.
It's state law, so that's where, I mean.
It comes to interpretation of the law. And what C-Trend has asked is for the judge to give to give a ruling on that. Whether that comes down before October 1st, this is all moot if that's the case, right? And let's hope that's the case. But if not, C-Trend's at risk of $10 million a year in grants.
So
Councilmember,
I was just gonna say I'd go with the majority. You know, if you guys want to do it, I'll support that. If not, I'll support that too.
oh, I thought you,
I withdrew.
well, we do need some direction. So
Well, I would say, I agree with you, Mayor. It is political.
mhm.
And that just bothers me, that we're in this position because of it. But it also makes me not want to just lay down and take it either because of it. And I mean, it's not just us. It's all the little towns. It's all the little cities who are standing up and trying to be a voice. And I think that we should be standing with the rest of the smaller cities to try to get our voice, to get that representation.
Well, to be fair, the 432 would give us a proportional voice based on our population.
So, yeah, we would get it, but we're going to be outvoted every time. There's the politics
We're-
of it right there.
We're going to be out. Yeah.
And
I
so
don't-
I
I-
think the 333 was making us feel like it would be more, we'd feel better about having a chance.
Well, and it's great if we feel better, but that's at the risk of grant funding.
I know, but you've got two other cities who are willing to,
We'll see if
know.
they are when push comes to shove.
yeah.
All right.
Well, and if they both back down, then I could, go with what the rest of the crew, if that's, where you guys
Jim,
direct me to
or
go.
Councilmember Kuipers.
Yeah, I guess my comment is it's a pretty big decision without a lot of facts. So other than it's political, I agree that we should be stepping up and being a voice for the small cities and whatever comes for the future of taxpayers. But I also hear what you're saying that, we may not have a chance, but we also don't know how much is it going to cost us to
Nope.
try to fight. We're voting on something we don't have enough.
Well, we're given direction. We're not voting. So, I mean,
Okay,
We have a lot of unknowns.
yeah, there's
There's a
no
lot
way
of
to
unknowns.
lay this out in a black and white scenario. There's just not, which is why you're up here sometimes to make decisions when you don't have all the facts. I mean, that's just part of the deal. You do the best you can and then if we make the wrong decision, we'll do a course correction would be my, but based on the facts in front of you, we need direction.
So currently, as it is, we have Vancouver and the county, they're all going to vote in favor to, they're going to vote against all of us. That's Camas, Ridgefield, La Center, Yacolt. Yes. Am I missing anybody? Washougal. Thank you. Sorry, Chair, if you're watching this.
Well, I don't know what they're voting. I mean,
Based on the last meeting.
Yes, the county won't care either way. They get their 3. It's more of a dogfight between the city of Vancouver, who wants their 4, and the small cities represented, who wants their 3. I just don't think it's worth going into this battle. I know we got to pick our battles, but it sounds like we're walking into a losing fight.
We would just be going back to where we used to be. We were,
432 for a long
we
time.
we had split representation before, and this was political 10 years ago. And it's, like Mr. Johnson used to always say, it's just a bus company. Like, I don't understand why it becomes such a big issue, but it was 10 years ago. I sat on a composition board then and we fought to everyone get a seat, but it made us feel good having a seat, but we were still outvoted. And what Vancouver did at that time, Vancouver used to have a block veto. They could block anything. And so they gave up the block veto. The county gave up a seat. We all got seats. But you know, and this goes way back even further than that, when it used to be the Vancouver Bus Company. And so when it was Vancouver Bus Company, you know, they gave up that to become C-Tran and be Clark County, and they just want to have control of it. And you know, with the way the county is now and compared to where it was then, and they're being elected by districts, I don't think it's ever going to change, you know, how they're going to vote. Because if they can truly vote to, you know, we as a council would go in there and we had one vote. And so it didn't matter and Camas is a good example of that. Camas is elected in wards. And so someone could say, well, no, my ward wants this, but they had to go as one vote, whatever the council approved.
Yeah.
And if the county is saying, no, my district doesn't want this, then it's already stacked. I mean, they're going to have three at least that are pretty much all Vancouver centric, and with the 4 votes from Vancouver. So I think you just, you know, we'd be fighting a battle that it's going to be just like it was 10 years ago. So
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm
No,
good.
okay.
But
I
just to
didn't know if that was your
clarify,
previous comment or not.
just to clarify, we're still waiting on the judge's.
I don't know if we'll be back in time. My concern is that October 1st deadline. And once that October 1st deadline passes and they find that the board is out of compliance, C-Tran loses access to future grants in perpetuity.
Potentially,
That's $10 million a year.
potentially. They may not.
Oh, again, let's go back to this was political. They will lose the grants, in my opinion. No, there's 3 transit organizations. Make sure you use your mic. The question was, is this the only transit agency affected by it? No, there's 3 transit organizations affected by it. Puget Sound. I can't remember the other one. They have come into compliance
Okay,
by population.
so they went with the 4-3-2.
Well, they just did it by population. They basically did House of Representatives, if you will. Proportional population. That's the word I was looking for.
Resist.
We're the only ones out of compliance.
It's just disappointing because I'm like, I think that as smaller towns might not. This would be easier for us to swallow if we felt like our county counselors within our district were actually representing us, because you had 2 counselors who, back when we were talking about taking the language, you know, they went against our resolution, and we're one of the biggest cities in their district, and the same for Camas. We both did a resolution and they didn't listen to us. They voted against us. And it's like, so I think that if they would have represented us how we wanted, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. I think we'd be more inclined to be like, hey, we trust that they're going to vote accordingly and represent us well, and hey, take it.
Well, let's go back to that language, because when we voted for that, I believe that a couple of people on this dais says what will happen is we will lose seats. And that's exactly what happened. Now, what my personal opinion is, if we fight this fight, C-Tran will lose grant funding. That's my opinion. So, I mean, you punch the 800-pound gorilla and you hope they don't punch back. We are a small state at the end. We are getting, with the 4-3-2, you get 11% representation with a 9-member board. Us in Ridgefield, you add our population, we're 11%. No, I don't know that we have, I mean, we have 3 people for not fighting, 2 for fighting. I'm waiting on, I guess, did you want to weigh in, Councilmember Kuipers?
Yeah, I
Fight or not fight?
no fight.
Okay.
And then I was majority.
Yep. All right. Sorry for that long convoluted, but I think it's important. I think the other thing, and I said it in the C-Tran meeting, this is all because of light rail. To pretend otherwise is illusionary. Any new revenue for light rail will have to be put, if it's a sales tax, to the voters. So just so we have that out in the open, I want that to be clear. All right. Anything else in council member reports? Sorry about that. All right. That brings us to new employee introductions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to introduce Walter Hurt today. He's our new maintenance worker in sewer. Walter was in the U.S. Navy, is retired now. He worked 10 years as a leading petty officer for repair division that oversaw day-to-day operations of ship repairs and sewage. He's married. His wife's Nicole, and I believe she's here. He's got 2 dogs, Cleopatra and Kyle. He's got his high school degree. Some of his hobbies include working on older cars, reloading ammo, and cooking. Fun facts he wanted to share is he's traveled a bit, lived in Italy for 6 years, and he's been on a number of Navy ships. He's retired from the Navy after 20 plus years and has been around the world. What do you want to say?
Thank you for having me here, and hopefully I can make sure the sewage is running well for y'all.
We run it running the correct
Correct.
direction. Yeah, that's, so I have to ask, the 2 dog names, did you name either of them? And is there anything behind those names?
Cleopatra, because she thinks she's the queen of the house, and Kyle, because he's a black dog, and my wife likes to spit the name. Dog's name on there is
All right, great. Well, welcome aboard. We look forward to having you employed for many years and safe working environment. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. My nephew's also in the Navy on a sub, so appreciate the
on those two.
yeah, those are long deployments. So please come up, meet the council, and welcome aboard. Okay, what that brings us to citizens communications portion of the evening. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Oh, presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, tonight we'll be joined by Lynn Love and Sean Moore from Workforce Southwest Washington. For those who may not be familiar with their mission, Workforce Southwest Washington serves as the local workforce development board for our region, providing policy and planning on workforce system matters. They're a nonprofit organization that channels funding and support to partners in a variety of fields, helping those organizations to provide employment services as well as training for individuals seeking jobs or development of relevant skills. Simply put, their actions are predicated upon the assumption that companies need workers, people need jobs, and Workforce Southwest Washington's role is to serve as the conduit that brings them together. And with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you for that introduction. And thank you all for allowing us to be here and for your time today. Like Robert said, my name is Lynn Love, and I am a program manager with Workforce Southwest Washington, or WSW for short. And I oversee all of our youth workforce investments.
And good evening, everybody. My name is Sean Moore. I use the he, him pronouns. I focus on the business side of the team, focused in health care. That includes anything health and anything care, behavioral, mental, dental, long-term care, and even pet health. I've been involved with workforce development in this community for about the last 10 years. Workforce Southwest Washington is one of 12 workforce boards here in Washington State, and we're one of over 500 located throughout the U.S. We utilize federal funds, state funding, and private grants to help us build the workforce here in Southwest Washington. We focus on 2 customers, businesses. So we invest funding in businesses to ensure that they can recruit and retain local talent. And then we also work with emerging talent and those who are in transition with their employment in ensuring that the skills that they need to provide for a living wage for themselves and their families are met. As seen in a recent Reflector headline, the goal of Workforce Southwest Washington and this council is financial stability because it means health to individuals, families, and our overall community. Workforce Southwest Washington is business-led. We want to make sure that our investments reach the community. Local businesses are part of our board, including Maddox Industries and Peace Health. Locally, we work with several employers from long-term care, manufacturing, construction, to ensure that the voices of your elected or your representatives here in Battleground are familiar with jobs and they can support you in terms of your development as a council. I personally want to say that I work with Recovery Cafe, Exchange Recovery, Battleground Health, to make sure that the needs of our most barriered residents are being met through employment opportunities themselves. We align with the Battleground initiatives, especially your employment corridor going down towards Dollars Corner. Our goal is to ensure that the businesses coming into the area are inclusive and can help sustain living wage for those that are coming into those jobs, as well as having a quality job. A quality job basically has 6 pillars where we focus on safe working conditions, that everybody has access to jobs that will allow them to support themselves and their families, have predictable hours and comprehensive benefits, that hiring and onboarding is accessible, and that training and advancement opportunities exist for all workers, both those coming into the workforce and those that are currently involved in employment.
And I will add too that those 6 quality job standards that Sean just mentioned were community selected a couple of years back, so 2020 COVID. We put together several focus groups of businesses, employees, individuals, community partners throughout Clark, Cowlitz, and Wahkiakum County. And those were kind of the 6 most important elements of a job to the community. But I think otherwise, so our investments, we receive, as Sean said, investments from, I'm going to lift that up a little bit, excuse me, investments, both public and private, and probably similar to the city of Battleground, we stretch every dollar by braiding and leveraging multiple funding sources. We help ensure that programs align with employer need, and we track performance for these programs, try to adjust quickly and invest where the return is strongest, both economically and to support local business growth. We know that when residents get to work, businesses have the talent they need and there's less pressure on public services.
We work primarily with high demand, high skill jobs in healthcare, construction, manufacturing, logistics and transportation, but it doesn't mean that we're only focused on those. We're focused on anything that will elevate those in our workforce to a living wage. For example, the Interstate Bridge project, which is coming, we want to make sure that our local workforce is ready to take on those living wage, generational changing income opportunities. That money should stay here and not be outsourced to communities where they'll ship that talent in.
Do you mind going back for a second? I just want to highlight. And as Sean mentioned, if I could talk a little bit about this slide in particular, we have 2 different customers, both businesses and employers, and we provide a variety of services for both. For businesses, we're looking at things like helping them find the employees they need to help fill positions, so that way they can strengthen, looking at providing and paying for training opportunities for their employees to upskill things of that nature. Would you add anything?
That's great.
Okay. And then for employees, we're looking at helping them find employment opportunities, helping them with career exploration, career growth, helping them with upskilling, kind of the opposite side of that same coin. And I'd say one of our most effective programs for both of those customers is Economic Security for All, or EXA. EXA was piloted in 3 different regions several years ago, including in Cowlitz County, so locally. And it was designed to help residents who were below the poverty level. In Southwest Washington, the average program cost is just under $6,000 per participant over 5 months. And the return on investment was substantial. Participants increased their median wage from less than $10,000 to $50,000 per year, and 88% reached self-sufficient wages, meaning that they had enough money to pay all their bills, some funds, some savings, things like that. Statewide, every dollar invested generates $2.34 in return. And here the return on investment is much stronger. In Southwest Washington, we return $4.25 for every dollar, which is more than quadruple. And that's tax revenue that's gained and public assistance costs that are reduced. And in addition, this last year, actually, the EXA program was so successful that it was codified into state law. And it's now a program offered in every county across the state, which was a big win, both locally and statewide. Next slide.
Our funding also covers those who are age 16 up to a time when they no longer care to work. Some of our strongest programs are youth focused for those that are out of school youth, and also with future leaders, say from Washington State University, where this past year we had over 30 future leaders participate with 26 different companies.
Let's see, excuse me. I think for next steps, how we can continue to work together, mainly there's 2 different suggestions here. Collaborating, we'd love to have you join us on opportunities, whether that's advisory boards, strategy sessions, roundtables, or even partnering on grant applications. And then also support, helping to amplify workforce efforts through communications and things of that nature. And these are just a few ideas of how we would like to, have partner with us, but I think the reverse is true as well. We'd love to be able to partner more closely with the city, and however we can be the most helpful. As Sean said, we do partner with several businesses in the community already, and we serve lots of community members through our services. But if there's more we could do, we'd love to do so.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. By any chance, does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
So how does someone access these services?
Great question. So we invest in 2 different centers. We have our youth programming, like Sean mentioned, for those who are 16 to 24, and then we also have adult programming for those who are just 18 plus. Our youth programming is through a program called Next. In the area, we're actually starting to co-locate at Battlegrounds Family Resource Center beginning this month. So youth can find us there in that 16 to 24 age range. And then adults can find us either at our WorkSource Vancouver or WorkSource Kelso.
So the other part of that question, the amount that you said it costs for 5 months, is that just what you guys are investing, or are people actually paying for this training?
No, people don't pay for the training. It's free to them. We
Okay.
cover the costs
As
through our
long as
grant.
they're like eligible, or is
Yeah.
there criteria besides the age?
Yeah, so we're primarily working with barriered individuals. Obviously those who, well, I shouldn't say that because I'm speaking for youth. In our youth world, we're primarily working with barriered youth because obviously youth who have access to high resources, have a high network, they're probably not looking for our services. So there are some requirements that could include anything from being low income, fostered youth, homeless, pregnant and parenting, which is, hard in that age range. And for our adult programming, there's less stipulation or less eligibility, but generally those who are looking for work, whether they've been misplaced or looking to upskill, are generally eligible.
You don't have to be like unemployed or any, like unemployment, how some of the programs are like that with work source, not workforce.
Yeah,
Very
that's very
confusing.
brand new.
It's
It's
I was like,
confusing.
are you guys the same people? But no.
Kind of, we invest in those. So we oversee those centers, but they are different, workforce versus work source. But yes, there's some requirements for some of our programming. Some of them you have to be employed. So it just kind of depends because it really depends grant by grant, program by program. But generally for those 18 plus, we can find something for those who are looking.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. So when you guys are looking for employees, are you posting what's coming? Like people are like, hey, we need 500 people in healthcare. Do you want to get on board and get trained to be in healthcare? Or is it just like a big case by case basis where you meet with the person and see what they want to do?
Yeah, please.
That is a great question.
Okay, sorry.
So not only does Workforce Southwest Washington focus on Clark, Cowlitz, Wahkiakum counties, we also work with our other workforce boards in Portland covering Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas counties. So together, this collaborative works with all the employers in the major trades, apprenticeships. We are focused on long-term strategies. We are at the table for employers that are coming in that need to upskill a bunch of workforce, and it could be down to the onesie, twosie. We need 2 MAs for this new clinic. So in terms of working with businesses, we're at the table, they're at the table. We want to make sure that we invite everybody to it, including the job seekers. The goal is to screen people into the program and not screen people out.
And I'll add to that bigger picture, we do focus on kind of what we call high growth, high demand areas or priority sectors. So we have a lot of data on kind of what sectors, like I just mentioned, are in demand that we can kind of guide towards, guide employees who are looking for jobs towards. And that's something that our staff at the WorkSource and Next centers will do, is try to guide people who may not know what they want to do or know that they need something that's higher paying towards those careers.
So not only is this information gathered from employers and the community-based organizations, educational leaders, it is also data-driven. For example, in October, we're having our State of the Workforce for this entire region so that we can highlight the data around what's been going on and take a peek into the future.
Awesome. Thank
Okay.
you for all that.
Councilmember Ferrer?
Yep. Oh, go ahead.
So do you work at all with the schools? Like I think of the kids with IEPs, they're about to graduate, maybe the job fairs, you know.
Yes, we do work closely with schools. As of right now, our youth programming focuses on out-of-school youth, so either those who've dropped out, who have graduated. So we work specifically with like Battleground High School around springtime for any seniors who don't know what their next steps are and kind of need some extra support.
As well as those programs with Battleground High School, those individuals that are 18 to 21 that are on IEPs, yes, we've worked with them on job tours, having them go out and do job shadows, going into the classroom and talking one-on-one with them, just to give them some additional support and give them a picture of what they can envision for themselves. And it's amazing, the business community is totally on board with that.
I was wondering if you have any real success stories you can share. Any big ones that jump out?
At the Future Leaders Internship Program, which is basically working with juniors and seniors from Washington State University. This last summer, a young man was on an internship with a brand new truck manufacturing plant in Ridgefield. So during his internship, he designed a brand new dump truck. Nobody has had this dump truck. By the time he ended his internship, that dump truck had been sold and is in production. That's a huge success for internships. With Clark College, with their medical assisting program, there have been a couple of very high barriered folks who have gone through the program. to and including visually impaired individual. The goal was to, again, give them a job opportunity, internship, clinicals, so that it wasn't their barrier that was the issue. It was the fact that this is somebody who could perform the tasks. In fact, the instructor of that program, Sarah, would go out of her way to have that individual give her the pokes because she was so good at finding veins. Amazing success stories. There are hundreds and hundreds of success stories. Got anyone to add?
No, that's great.
Is it quick?
Yeah, I just had one more question.
Oh, heck
You'd
yeah.
mentioned Recovery Cafe and then
Mhm.
IEPs and all that. So I'm curious, do you all work with people who may have a job coach or things like that, like people that need assistance to be in the workforce to give them the opportunity to work?
Yes,
I'm
often.
not sure what that's called. That's
Well,
there's a
it's
name.
job shadow.
Yeah, something like that.
It's the Futures Program at Battleground School District.
What is it called? Future?
The Futures Program.
But is that something that you offer as well, where you're training people to do, I don't know what it's called. There's a word for it. We have them at my work.
We do not pay for them unless they're hired and they need the training as an employee. We do have a program that covers that, but we do a lot of work in aligning employers with those job coaches to make sure that those individuals do have that opportunity. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lynn and Sean. It's always awesome to hear from a program that's a hand up. A lot of times people associate government with handouts, and it's nice to be associated and partners with a program such as yourselves. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Okay, now it brings us to citizens communications. I think most people that are on the list have spoken before. So I'll quickly go through my spiel. Essentially, direct your comments to the mayor. It's 3 minutes. And if anybody is unaware of recent news events, I have always been a little strict on public comments. I might be even more strict. Don't raise your voice. Don't use incentive. What's the word I'm looking for? No. Don't try to cause drama. Yeah. Give your comments. Let's have a civil discourse. If you shout or start doing those things, I will interrupt you and the timer will keep going. So let's continue to have the civil discourse that we've had here, and all get home safely. With that, Wynn, you're up first.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry, what? Do we have somebody online?
we do not have someone online, but the speaking mode is not working.
Okay. I'll do the 3 minutes on audible timer on my phone. Yeah, I can do that unless. And let me make sure it's audible. Whenever you're ready, Wynn. I'll give you I'll give a 1 minute warning. How's that? Is that good? All right, floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Wynn Gersich, and I came here tonight. And I've been gone for a while because I'm in a HOA. And if you don't do this, they charge $200 a day. And if you don't do that, and they're going to hire a painter for $3,000. So even though you do all this work yourself, and it's for your school districts, you know, all this money that we're doing in these HOAs, they're trying to steal your house. There's a big movement going on in every state around the United States that people are trying to get rid of these HOAs or make it that they aren't overcharged. You know, $200 a day. They're saying there should be $100 a day and $300 at the most. People need to check this out. And as you're building stuff, these HOAs got to go. But the big thing I came here for is the fact that in Clark County today, Camas Register resident Margaret Tweet shares information about the risk of the vaccines. Now, in these vaccines, they're all poison. And we drink recycled toilet water. You know that. And when we drink recycled toilet water, everybody who took these vaccines, you're drinking them too. And one of the big things is they've got worms in them. And that's a bioweapon. And everybody should be taking ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, but you're not going to hear that from your doctors. And the odd thing is you have an apothecary down the street that actually sells wormwood. Wormwood is ivermectin. But there's other things you can use. You know, there's many, many lists. And if you look up on it's Barbara O'Neill's site. She has Legacy Health and she has Barbara O'Neill. And she tells you all the things you can do to get rid of worms. But everybody should be deworming because these COVID shots have worms in them. And this is one thing, to survive this, you should be reading this book right here, COVID-19 Lies by Dr. Brian Artist, because he has 3 pages of that these shots actually cause mental illness. So when these cities force these upon the police department and everybody else, they can get psych problems later on. And it's amazing because I've talked to quite a few of them and they said they would take a shot in a heartbeat for their job. And I said, oh, okay, good for you. Anyway, the main thing is that all the people that take these shots and they're Melnick's trying to get everybody back to taking the shots again. This is contaminating the water even more. And I don't care if you got a water filter, you can't get the worms out of the water. This is a bioweapon. And if you don't read this book, you aren't going to live through it. And one of the things you can do is to support the handicap Olympics, because I want to ask the mayor, since he knows so much about fluoride, it causes Down syndrome. I would like to know how many Down syndrome
that's your
children
time.
are in this city. And
Thank
that's
you.
one thing you never brought up about the Down syndrome and that
Thank you.
you're,
Thank you. That's your time.
okay.
Next up, Chan and Vicky. Do you want to share your 3 minutes or are you each giving 3 minutes of testimony? Okay.
I'm Jan Paulin and this is Vicky Swalling. We're from the Battleground Community United Methodist Church. And we're here just to, on the 27th of September, we're having the 4th Annual Music Fest. And all the funds raised from this event goes towards North County Food Bank. And we've had a good turnout in the past, but we're trying to publicize it a little bit more to get even more this year. As you know, the food bank does a enormous job in the area. And so we're doing everything we can to support it. It's a $20 ticket to get in. And then we're also having 3 different raffles. You buy raffle tickets, and we're just hoping to see everybody there. And short and sweet. We do have flyers here that if we can leave and maybe.
You can leave them with the clerk. If you would just maybe remind people where it would be.
It's at the Battleground Community United Methodist Church down on 199th Street, just outside of town, just west of town. So, and that's it.
The main entertainment will be provided by the Kansas City Rhythm Kings, and they're well-known across the county for doing voluntary work. One of the things that we need to remember about the community is that it takes a whole community to support one food bank, and it's really something that we can all get involved in.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, if you leave those with the clerk, any handouts, go to her and we'll be sure and get them. Next up, Phil Gordon. It's a familiar face.
Well, we said, I'm Phil Gordon, and I spoke with 3 of you last Wednesday at City Cafe at Allen Ernie's, and I was encouraged to make a statement, albeit limited to 3 minutes here, to the full city council. So you invited my flame out, and you're going to get it. In the recent past, there have been many citizens' complaints about deafening noise caused by July 4th fireworks. I certainly agree with those concerns, but I want to describe an additional issue that garners much less attention. That is, unless you're a victim like I was. In my battleground neighborhood, multiple families pooled the resources to purchase a large collection of fireworks, most of which were aerial fireworks, over 100 rockets. The aerial fireworks are set off on the street 30 feet from my property between 9:30 and 11:20 on the night of July 4th. By the end of the evening, my property was littered with tens of thousands of cardboard particles, fractured plastic tubes, some orange splotchy chemical, and other debris. So on Saturday morning, July 5th, daylight, I could evaluate the aftermath. The houses from my south down all had this debris. To the north is an old orchard. No one cared about that. But east of my property, which is the farthest away from the street, there's a green belt with a trail and a stream. It was littered. But my property, being the closest to the point where the rockets were set up, took the brunt of the bombardment. My next door neighbor to the south, who has a 2-story home, looked out his window Saturday morning and wondered, he told me later, what are all the leaves on Phil Gordon's house? And then he looked and he could see it was strewn with cardboard particles. So I would think that there is a law in the city of Battleground that prevents a person from dumping his or her trash on their neighbor's property without their permission. I would think that. But what I do know is that the city of Battleground says it's legal for people to deposit their trash and debris on somebody else's property without that person's permission, as long as they do so on July 3rd or July 4th by shooting their crap 150 feet up in the sky. I resent having to clean up my property of all this stuff just because somebody is insensitive in my neighborhood. How much time did it take cleaning up my property? It's 8,000 square feet. There's concrete flat work, there's a roof, there's gutters, there's lawn and shrubs. It took me about 8 hours over 2 weeks to clean up my property. And am I out of time?
Go, if you can summarize real quick, I'll give
Okay,
you.
I request a change to City of Battleground law to prevent what I consider neighbor on neighbor abuse of the present law. I'm going to change.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments, sir. Last up, Jessica.
Hello, City Council. I'm Jessica Cole. I want to thank you, Mayor, for the proclamation recognizing Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. I'd like to speak today about how LGBTQ people, both youth and adults, are disproportionately impacted by suicide risk, and why being inclusive is not just compassionate, but necessary for effective prevention. As a parent, I want to share something personal. When my first child came out to me as LGBTQ as a teenager, I was completely uninformed and unprepared. I hadn't received supportive information from society or from my church, and I didn't know what to do. But I am so grateful that I had the instinct not to reject them. That one decision to respond with love instead of rejection is something I now know made all the difference for their safety and well-being. Recent surveys from the Trevor Project show that nearly 4 in 10 LGBTQ young people seriously considered suicide last year. And among transgender and non-binary youth, it's nearly half. About 12% of LGBTQ youth actually attempted suicide in the past year. This is not because of who they are. This is because of what they face: discrimination, bullying, family rejection, and lack of affirming care. Factors that are within our control as a community. Research by the Family Acceptance Project shows that family acceptance dramatically lowers harm. When parents, caregivers, and communities affirm LGBTQ people, depression and suicide attempts drop significantly. Imagine being a teenager who can't talk to their parents about who you are and feeling the silence as rejection. That kind of isolation can be devastating, and it doesn't end with youth. LGBTQ adults also experience higher risks when they are excluded or discriminated against in their workplaces, schools, and communities. There are concrete steps we can take. The city can train public servants to understand how discrimination affects mental health, and the city can create or support safe places where LGBTQ people know they are welcome and valued. Suicide prevention is about reducing harm, about saving lives. Discrimination is an avoidable risk factor. I ask you to commit to inclusivity so no one here has to suffer or die because their identity was rejected or silenced. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other members of the public wish to give testimony and we have nobody online? Seeing none, I will close the public court comments portion of the evening. We do have some hearings come up, so if you're here to testify on those, you still have that opportunity. Brings us to consent agenda. Council, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ferrer, second by Councilmember Kuipers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't want to pull it off, but I just wanted to have council maybe think about, we just approved the Old Town sub-area plan, and I believe it was about page number 316. It was a slow day at work. It talked about setbacks. I know I personally would be interested in looking at that, not just for downtown, but the entire city. I don't know how the rest of council feels like that, or if they want more time to think on that. But I would like us to be a little more business friendly in how a business sets up their place of business. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, we're just recognizing the plan. We will officially adopt it as part of our 2025 comprehensive plan, and any policies and such can be included in those steps. So thank you for that. I've made a note of it. I'll make sure to share it for the next step in the process.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to have some discussion on that, what that would look like from a policy discussion and implementation.
Thank you.
That brings us to, who's up? Megan, are you up? I
Yes.
believe so. The budget amendment public hearing?
Yes. So before you, you have an opportunity to conduct a public hearing for ordinance 2025-11, amending the 2025 budget and consider adoption of the ordinance. The budget amendment is some housekeeping related to some carryover projects that are from 2025, in addition to a few unexpected items. And with that,
Okay, it's a pretty exhaustive list for those of you who didn't peruse it. It's quite a long list. I think it's testament to staff for getting a lot done this year, really. I think that's what that laundry list says. So with that, I will open the public hearing at 8:02 p.m. For public testimony, individuals are limited to 3 minutes to provide comments on budget amendment ordinance number 2025-11. Please direct your comments to the mayor. And is there anybody online or in person that would like to comment?
No one online, Mr. Mayor.
Did we receive any written testimony regarding this?
We did not.
Okay. And last call. Okay, seeing no further members of the public wishing to speak, we'll close the public hearing at 8:02 p.m. And if we could read the title of the ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 2025-11, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Battle Ground, Washington, amending the city's 2025 budget ordinance 2024-12.
Any discussion or questions?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-11 as presented.
It was seconded by, okay.
Councilmember DeRoche.
I turned my microphone off.
I can't hear with the mic.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Overholtzer, second by Councilmember DeRoche to approve ordinance 2025-11 in its entirety. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And looks like our community development director's up next.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we're requesting a public hearing for ordinance 2025-12. This is amending the Battleground Municipal Code Title V for business taxes, licenses, and regulations. As we shared at the August 18th meeting, due to updates at the business license model ordinance at the state level, we are required to update and increase the threshold for business licenses out of city businesses. Currently, the code language reads 2,000 annually, and that needs to be changed to 4,000 annually.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'll now open the public hearing at 8:04 PM for public testimony. Individuals are limited to 3 minutes. Provide comment on municipal code amendments, chapter 5.03, business registration and licensing ordinance number 2025-12. Did we receive any written testimony on this ordinance? And do we have anybody online that would wish to comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody in person? Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 8:05 PM. And if we could get the title read, please.
Ordinance number 2025-12, an ordinance amending Battleground Municipal Code Title V, Business Taxes, Licenses, and Regulations.
Motion to approve ordinance 2025-12.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Farrar, second by Councilmember Kuipers to approve. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving along.
So this evening, one more request for public hearing. We're working through the steps associated with our residential target areas for our multifamily tax exemption program. We brought that to you at the July 21st meeting, and per the RCW, the next procedural step is to ask council to hold a public hearing to designate parcel number 192350000 as a residential target area. Once the hearing is held, we would then ask that you direct us to continue with the steps, and staff will bring an ordinance designating the parcel.
Okay, thank you for that. So with that, we'll open the public hearing at 8:06 PM for public testimony. Individuals limited to 3 minutes to provide comment on the multifamily tax exemption program in residential target areas. Designate parcel 19235 as residential target area. Please direct your comments to the mayor. Do we receive anything in written, or do we have anybody online that would wish to comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody in person who would wish to comment on the multifamily tax exemption program? Seeing no further members of the public wish to speak, we'll close the public hearing at 8:07 PM. There is no motion or no action to be taken on this, council. However, per the request, direction to proceed, I'm assuming.
Yeah, during business, I will present
Okay,
an
during
ordinance
business,
to you.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go then to Mark, Mr. Hersick.
So ordinance 2025-14 would approve a development agreement with Maddox. We talked about this at the last meeting. Essentially, the city would be an applicant on environmental permitting. Maddox would end up paying for all the costs associated with it. The infrastructure will be future city infrastructure. So that's why the city is they're proposing the city be the applicant for it. And so unless there's any questions, I recommend we go to public hearing.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to recuse myself from this action.
Yep.
Well, since
Thank
that's
you.
what you're doing, I'll moved.
No, well, we're going to open the public hearing first.
Oh, dang, I was so fast. Sorry.
So we'll now open the, you're making my mistakes, jumping ahead. I'll now open the public hearing at 8:08 PM.
Too excited.
For public testimony, individuals limited to 3 minutes to provide comment on the Maddox Infrastructure Development Agreement, ordinance number 2025-14. Please direct comments to the mayor. Any written comments received online or anybody online?
No,
Any
Mr. Mayor.
Written comments received or any comments on? Anybody in person who wishes to comment on this development agreement? Nobody in person? All right. With that, we will close the public hearing at 8:08 PM.
Now I can go.
No, she's not reading.
Oh. my
Yeah.
gosh. I quit.
Ordinance number 2025-14, an ordinance adopting a development agreement between the City of Battle Ground and BG Village Property LLC.
What? Okay. Now there's pressure. No. I move to approve ordinance number 2025-14, adopting the Maddox Infrastructure Development Agreement.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember DeRocher, second by Councilmember Ferrer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously 6-0. And if we could get, thank you. Okay, now we're in the business item and now perhaps.
Yes, a topic you may not be familiar with. So in the next step procedurally, now that we've held the public hearing, will be ordinance 2025-13. We would like to ask council to set a public hearing for that ordinance designating parcel 192350000 as a residential target area for the multifamily tax exemption program. And we would ask that you set that public hearing for the October 20th, 2025 meeting.
You want her to read it first?
We don't have to read it. We're just setting the hearing.
I move we set a public hearing for ordinance 2025-13 designating parcel 19235000 as residential target area for the multifamily tax exemption program.
Second.
The motion in a second. Councilmember Kuipers with the motion, Councilmember DeRocher with the second. Any discussion?
I would just like to clarify that your motion is for the meeting on 10/20/25. Is that correct?
October 20th, to
Yes.
set the public hearing for October 20th.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I need to read the title. of
Okay,
the
go ahead.
ordinance. Ordinance number 2025-13, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Battle Ground, Washington for the designation of parcel 192350000 as a residential targeted area for the multifamily tax exemption program.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Ordinance has been read. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of setting the hearing for October 20th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
And then finally, a procedural step in front of you, we have another ordinance, number 2025-15. This will be the municipal code amendments for chapter 3.45 related to multifamily housing tax exemption. So again, as part of the procedural steps.
We don't have that.
We don't, yeah.
Oh.
This isn't up here.
this is for the years, right? To change it to, yeah.
So two-part, yes. So this would actually be changing Battleground Municipal Code language in that chapter. So I have a staff report. Do you have the staff report in front of you?
It's just not on our,
Yeah, it's not on our agenda. That was printed out.
what's next. that
Oh,
we're
I'm so
talking-
sorry.
It isn't. It's on mine. It's not on theirs.
So this is a second ordinance, just to clarify, 2025-15. This is still related to the multifamily tax exemption program. This would be two parts, though. This would actually update the Battleground Municipal Code language to include that residential target area parcel that we've talked about a couple times this evening, as well as considering adding a second tax exemption duration of 12 years. Currently, our code has an 8-year option. So tonight, I would just like to ask council to consider setting a public hearing for this ordinance 2025-15 for the October 20th meeting as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm sorry that you didn't have the updated version.
But before that, can we just get the ordinance title read?
Ordinance number 2025-15, an ordinance amending Battleground Municipal Code Title III, Revenue and Finance, Chapter 3.45, Multifamily Housing Tax Exemption, Section 3.45.030, Residential Target Areas, Section 3.45.040, Tax Exemption.
Okay, any questions for this council? Asking for a public hearing October 20th.
I'd like to move to set a public hearing for ordinance 2025-15 for the meeting 10/20/25.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Holzer, second by Councilmember Kuipers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that brings us to the setting and having public hearings. Speed limits.
All right, give me 1 second. I'll get my presentation up. Right, neighborhood speed limits. Just kind of a refresher, at the August 4th meeting, there was a council consensus to set neighborhood speed limits at 20 miles per hour. Council did have questions about how the signing would be implemented. So there's a couple ways you can do it. So there's sort of the traditional method. Essentially, you'd have 20-mile-per-hour speed limit signs at the entrances to all subdivisions. So essentially, you'd have your main roads. When you came into a neighborhood, you would have the 20-mile-per-hour sign. And so in order to do that, it'd be approximately 195 signs at about $30,000. Pros to this method is there's less confusion. Cons, there's more signs to purchase and maintain, and then there's a higher cost, both initial and long-term.
Mark, before you move on, do we have speed limit signs in neighborhoods right now as you enter of 25?
Yes, generally speaking, yes. For the citywide option, essentially you can see in the picture here, there's a series of signs that get put together that tells you the speed limit throughout the city. And essentially what it says is it is 20 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. Doing it with this method, you would essentially do it at spots as you enter into the city, knowing that WashDOT likely wouldn't let us put it on their state highways because there'd be some confusion. Anywhere you came off the state highways, you would have to have the sign. So kind of the example in the picture is Onsdorf, where you'd be coming down 503 and in both directions, you would have the sign. So essentially to do all that throughout, it's about 33 signs, costs us approximately $10,000. Pros, it's cheaper, initial and long-term, and less maintenance. The cons is there can be confusion and clutter. And to kind of give an example of that, so here's that Onsdorf example. So there's already a school speed limit sign for when flashing. Onsdorf is a 35-mile-per-hour facility, so it would have the facility speed sign. And then if you added the citywide speed there, you would have a whole bunch of signs all in a row. And again, the concern would be the confusion. So essentially, I have two asks. One is to set the public hearing. I've got the ordinance and the staff report to make that 20, to make that official. And then I'd like to hear if there's a council preference for either of those two signing options.
I just have a question. Can you go back 2 slides, please?
Yeah.
When you're showing the photo of Onsdorf, you said it would be confusing having all those signs, but yet right before that, you said whenever you're going off of a highway, you're going to have to put that. So are you?
Not under the first option, because you would have them in the subdivisions, not on the,
Okay.
you wouldn't have that third sign on the main road.
Okay, so you're kind of showing us pros and cons of
Yeah.
maybe going with one and, okay, and the other, okay.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mark, I have a question. Do you have any ideas what cities do normally on an average? Do they usually do the citywide? Do they do the individual for towns that are similar to ours?
The one place I've seen the citywide was actually Minneapolis. They did that method. And so they've got several of that kind of citywide version. What I've seen in cities here in Washington is it's typically as you have them in the subdivisions and that sort of thing. But I know Minneapolis does do the citywide version.
Thank you.
Good. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know how it's any more confusing for the state. They've got a 50, 40, 30 within 200 feet of each other out there that we're getting blamed for. So, I don't know why we can't do the same and put it on their highways. Ms. Davis, the city of Linden does citywide. I just came through there 2 days ago, and it says it right coming into the city. It has a sign says 25 mph unless otherwise posted, and they've posted that all throughout the entrances into the city. So there is one here in Washington that does it, and it seems to work for them. So I think it's easier to do it that way, and we just don't have as many signs, and then just start enforcing and letting people know that it'll take enforcement to get people to understand that. But yeah.
And I'll add that if we can get permission from WashDOT, it would lower that 33 number quite a bit. I don't have the exact number, but I would say 10-ish you could take off that list to get it down if they give us permission.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rushers.
So for the larger one, that's $30,000, do we have the budget for that? Is there any particular fund or anything that we could utilize?
That all comes out of the street fund, and off the top of my head, I think we have that in the current budget. I'd want to double check that, but I think we have some cost savings from a couple other things that could be used.
So the second part to the question, for all the 25, if we did replace those, for all the 25 mph signs, can we surplus them somewhere, sell them some other city that wants 25 mph signs?
I mean, that's always a possibility. We have streets that will remain 25, so we'll keep some in our inventory to use.
You good? Councilmember Overholser?
Yes. First and foremost, I love that Troy is having to say my name so many times and he's struggling with it all night. So we'll get there, buddy. Two-part question.
It's too many syllables
When we
per
need to
meg.
remove a 25 mph sign from a neighborhood, that pole is still just a bare pole at this point, right?
Yeah, so the cost I have in there would be replace all poles, but it's very likely there would be several that are properly placed to just essentially swap the sign.
So it could save us a little.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Second question, and this is for another staff member, Chief Flynn. What is your thoughts to just maybe add some clarification to the confusion portion of this, like for officers and their policing? What would be your thoughts on this?
We are running our tails off right now, just dealing with Main Street. I see pros and cons to each. You know, it sure makes it easy as you come into the city that there's just some consistency. One of the problems I would forecast that the education part, that's what we've been using right now with the, just a big believer that once we implement the change, those, unless it's really egregious, the direction that I provide the officers is education first. I think that's important. I think we would accomplish it either way. There's certainly a benefit to seeing the signs as you go around because you're going to have people that are going to claim ignorance. My prediction is the people that are that we're going to be dealing with, if they didn't listen at 25, they're not going to listen at 20. It's going to take just the enforcement, and unfortunately, there is a group that until you hit them in the pocketbook, they're not going to change your driving behaviors. So that's what we'll ultimately look towards in the end, but hopefully we can accomplish a lot more on the education part.
Thank you.
I don't know about council as a whole, but most of the complaints I get are from speeding on the main roads, Onsdorf, 20th, Main, Grace, Parkway. I don't hear of or see a lot of complaints, and I don't know how many tickets we even write in neighborhoods. I'm guessing it's probably rather the exception than the norm that we actually can catch anybody in neighborhood speeding it, you know, but I imagine it's much less than the arterials.
Correct. Just looking at finite resources, try to get the most bang for our buck, putting them on those main roadways. If we have a problem that's in a neighborhood, we'll certainly address it. But as you stated, it's going to be on the main roads that we're going to be traditionally doing the enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine leaving with it actually at 25 right now, but I understand the argument for going to 20. but for me, it just it hasn't been something that's been brought to my attention that the citizens have been clamoring for. Couple that with the enforcement mechanism. I think people are pretty respectful in neighborhoods. So, but I understand the concerns that council's trying to address, and happy to accommodate that. So with that, can we read the title, please? Kelly?
Ordinance number 2025-16, an ordinance amending Battleground Municipal Code Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 10.08, Miscellaneous Traffic Regulations, Section 10.08.060, Speed Limits within the City of Battleground.
And is this for October 20th as well? Okay, I would entertain a motion, council.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Kuiper, second by Deputy Mayor Bowman to set a public hearing for ordinance number 2025-16 on October 20th, 2025. Any discussion? Sure.
Go out in the paper.
Hey.
Get big eyes on it, try to get a better turnout, actually have people come. Because I agree with you, Mayor, that I haven't heard any concerns. I was more in favor of have people petition, get the neighbors that were really concerned. I do know there is a couple areas and I think we've met those needs, but so that was, yeah, so that's why I bring this up to know, is there a way for us to get more eyes on this and try to get a better turnout to see, is there a state concern on this that maybe I myself am not?
Yeah, I mean, every time we do a public hearing, there's advertisement that goes out. Whether people follow it or not, you know, I can't say, but
We are required to put those out. My suggestion is, I believe our PIO will put out some social media, and I would just recommend sharing that far and wide. Maybe, somebody from the press might pick it up. I don't know, just saying.
And could I add to that?
But
Mr. Mayor,
yeah,
could I-
because those, they're buried in the.
Yeah. And,
I-
and just a reminder, this started with 20 miles an hour in the neighborhoods. This kind of started with an HOA asking if they could reduce and implementing a plan around that. So if we accomplish that, then that's the start. The going citywide is another decision around, does that add more clarity? Or are we making it more confusing by having 25 here, but then 20 there? So that's, I think, what the question is.
That's the question we need to answer. I agree.
Yeah, thank you.
So I've long heard people complaining about the speed limit in neighborhoods, wanting to have it be 20. And not knowing how to make that happen.
Okay.
I believe I think I mentioned it before about a petition, and I don't even know the process, but it's in our code, but I don't think people know that. But over the years, I have heard
Okay.
that just a 5 mile per hour could really help.
There's a big survivability difference between 5 mile an hour. Okay, with that, we have a motion on the floor to set the public hearing for October 20th for ordinance 2025-16. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That ends the business portion of the meeting and takes us to administrative reports.
Mayor, I just have one item. I'm going to have a chief actually do a presentation. We talk about speed limits a lot. We talk about public safety. We put a lot of pressure on our law enforcement agency to ensure the safety of our citizens, and that includes our roadways. And so I'm going to have Chief talk about some intersections with some collision data. I know there's a time to time, council members are asking about data. We lowered speed limits. What's that impact? Although that's relatively new, I'm sure that we can evaluate that later, but I'd like Chief to talk to you about collisions and intersections and whether it's due to speed or failure to yield, or in this case, run red lights. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief.
Thank you, ma'am. First, as we're talking about the speeds, Traffic safety's been something that has been a priority since I've gotten here. As of, the start of the school year, we're into, I think, week 3 or week 4. On 9/11, we did just to give you an idea of how large the problem is. We asked for Target Zero to assist us with enforcements, and just near daybreak is where we sat our operation up on Thursday, 9/11. In just one shift, one officer into 32 stops. We had somebody that was almost double the speed limit with kids in the crosswalks. So the problem is severe. For a town this size, the amount of traffic accidents that we've had, serious accidents, and certainly fatal accidents is truly unacceptable. So we look at the resources that we have at the police department. We're trying to use the technology to the very best of our abilities to make sure that we're putting the cops on the dots, making sure we're getting as much bang for our buck. One of the things that certainly is open for discussion is there additional technology that we can continue to utilize that will tamp down some of those driving behaviors? The two that we've started to look at, which is what I'll talk about this data, is one would be a red light cam, and another would be a speed cam. So if that was to be considered, what does the data show? Because we have to look at the data. So the first one that we wanted to look at is making decisions based off what the data shows. I'm very grateful that our police support manager, Katrina Green, pulled this information that you're looking at on the screen. This is a 1-year snapshot. This 1-year snapshot is from September 1st of last year through the end of August this year. What you see on there is 187 different traffic collisions. And as you scroll, Rob, if you'll scroll just in once, just kind of give them an idea, each one of those data points has causation factors and gives you more and more of the details. What we're able to discern from that map is the 2 locations that were the most problematic as far as intersections go. And I'll go to a different, Rob, would you mind going to the handout screen that had the Excel sheet on it? What you'll see is that we pulled, I believe it's the top 10 intersections. We looked at this, so our police support manager read through 187 of these reports to find out causations. And what you're able to see when Rob pulls this up is our top intersections where we had a failure to yield or failure to stop, which is what Rob's enlarging right there. The one that had the most violations was 502 and 503. There were 14 collisions at that intersection. But when you break that down, only 4 of those collisions were as a result of failure to stop or failure to yield. That means that 10 of those were in the other category. What does that mean? Somebody's looking at their phone. Somebody's doing anything other than paying attention to their driving. So the causation was not listed as failure to yield, failure to stop. When you look at the second largest contributor, which was Main Street and 20th, that was at 12 collisions. 9 of those, or 75%, were for failure to yield, failure to stop. So that would certainly suggest the intersection of 20th and Main, based off data, has more to do with people that are not slowing down at that intersection. I would ask that you also, though, consider Main and 20th versus 502 and 503, distinct difference in those intersections. You have a lot more volume that is going through 502, 503. You also have a much larger intersection that you're dealing with. So this is the rec data that we have on this particular one. I think to make an informed decision, we would need to include our traffic experts and have them do an examination of it. But just on face value of what you're seeing, the map that Rob first showed you gives you an overall picture. This breaks it down by intersection as to either one of those two, and I can make a strong argument for either one as to why that would be effective. I can tell you in the previous jurisdiction that I just came from, we had an intersection there that was probably in the top 3 in the state. When we put the red light camera there, the number of traffic accidents and violations traffic accidents plummeted because it runs 24 hours a day. It's a very, very large intersection, so it was not so dissimilar to 502 and 503. I think that also that if you were to examine the larger intersection, you are certainly going to have much more people in the public that are aware of that, and you're going to see that change of driving behavior as you know it, forecasts on driving apps like Waze and those type of incidences. So that's what we found as a result of the collision. So before I move on to the speed ones, is there any questions on that one, Mr. Osher?
I just had a question on how many of these intersections have the flashing yellow turn?
I do not have that data, ma'am. This was as raw as this afternoon. I just don't have that. Mark might be able to get that. But I don't know that he's going to have it right off that bat.
I'm just curious how many, because I don't know, I really hate those and think that they cause more accidents.
Sure. And when I say about the causation factors, please remember that's her cursory check as she's going through these. So I would say take that with a grain of salt. What I do feel is substantial is both those two problematic intersections would just warrant further review.
Do we know that we can put on WASDOT highways a red light camera?
I'd have to do additional research. I believe so. Rob's indicating the same belief, but it's certainly something that would be worth just based off data alone, showing that we do have a problem and it would warrant looking at that further to see how we can rectify that.
Appreciate the data.
Yes, sir.
Question, what was the date for this? Was this the whole year too?
This was a 12-month look that just
Okay,
ended
so we
8/31.
recently reduced some speeds out there, and we're also talking to WASDOT dropping down. So maybe before we jump on the red light cameras, I'm just thinking out loud that maybe we could bring this back. You could give us maybe a smaller window and then compare that with before the change and after the change and see if it's given us a difference.
We can absolutely look at that, just refreshing the data to see what it
My
shows.
concern with that is you're dealing with low numbers over a large period of time, so you're probably not going to get a good representation of data with a 1 or 2 month look in.
However, the next one, if council's done with this Excel slide, the next one I think is going to be even more telling of the reason why we need to look at Main Street more. So the second thing that we were asked to take a look at is, let's take a look at that blob that's on the screen. It's the same time frame. Each one of those, and Ms. Swanson can email that to each of you. You can click on each data point and it'll give you more information. But those are all the traffic stops that were made in the same time frame that year. It's color coded. It's color coded, and you can click on and off the boxes on the left, so you can look at just traffic stops that resulted in a warning. You can look at traffic stops that resulted in a citation, or you can look at traffic stops with speeding. The speeding ones are the ones that are in yellow. So as you start zooming in with all of them clicked in, you can see that we have a tremendous concentration on Main Street. As you start looking around the map and seeing where, again, we're going to get the most bang for our buck, when I zoomed in, and Rob, if you don't mind, if you could zoom in right by the high school on Main Street, there is a tremendous concentration, as you can imagine, that starts just after you come, as you're coming eastbound on Main, after you cross 503. I think that's around 5th Street, continuing east to just before Parkway. That should not be a big surprise to anyone because that is our traditionally our school zone area that's in there. But just the volume that you're seeing there would certainly suggest that that's where our biggest problem is. The other thing is looking at public opinion. I don't know how many people would ever be against us trying to do additional enforcement inside school zone areas. Showing that data also shows how much enforcement we've already been doing out there in that school zone area. And I don't see that those numbers coming down very much in the recent past. So if there was a question about if we did consider doing a radar enforcement camera, looking at the data, it would suggest that area, Main Street, would probably be one of the better areas for us to consider. Any questions? So that what you're seeing there in is excess of about 3,000 stops. The yellow ones are just speeding. So if you unclick the top two, Rob, I think that'll just give you that picture. That's where you can see just speed related issues. And when you're looking at that, going back to the mayor's earlier comment about neighborhood enforcement, that kind of gives you a visual of what you'd seen for the year. So you're correct. Typically, you're not seeing as much in neighborhoods. You're typically in the major travel roads. But as far as where we're seeing the biggest speed problem, it's right there on Main Street in front of the high school.
Chief, can you go back to the one with warnings?
Yes.
Can you add the warnings back to that?
Yes, sir.
And then zoom in back to the high school and Parkway.
Yes, sir.
So why do we have so many warnings being given right outside of Opdal Chiropractic and no tickets being given in that area?
Again, this data came to us late this afternoon. That'll take me a little bit more to dive into as to this is a year snapshot.
It's not me if that's what you're asking.
Well, I mean, when you do both the warnings and the tickets, I mean, you would like to see, or I would like to see consistency. Like
Yes, sir.
Some are getting warnings, some are getting tickets, but when you see one area like that and it's all just,
Sure.
warnings and it's right next to the high school, and I know there's a crosswalk right there that a lot of people miss because it's so close to you're getting across Main Street and kids, and they kind of pop out there. They just come right out of the gate and come across there. That's I mean, I get the other ones down by the high school, why we're writing tickets down there, because there are crosswalks, it's in the school zone, that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you could follow up on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, my speculation is the speeding that you're seeing on Main is a little easier for them to enforce. I don't know what those stops were made for. I'm not sure if we click on each of the data points, Rob, if you click on any one, random one on Parkway North, if it'll give the data information on there. I will say that we are consistent with the number of problems that we have in crosswalks. That is something that we continue to do enforcement on. We're going to do more. We have more operations that we're going to be doing on crosswalk enforcement because it is so problematic. But as far as to explain the why, I'll see if we can dig into it a little bit more, but I just don't have an answer for that at this time. Any questions though on the speed related issues? I will tell you that an additional concern would be typically from if it carries over to what my experience was before. This does create, even though there's great technology that we can do for the traffic citations, there is also a piece where somebody has to review those. And that is going to take extra man hours to look at. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. When we looked at this before, we had to have certain statistics to justify the red light cameras. And do we meet those statistics? Are we eligible for the red light camera?
I'd have to do just, again, some more research on that. I can be prepared to answer that. I think that the speed one is a lot easier to show, and especially suggesting that data. As the mayor pointed out, when you look at the number of violations that we have there, I just don't know where we're at with that threshold. But that would not be, I don't think, too hard to look at.
I don't think it's the numbers you have to show. You have to show why that intersection might have a data-driven need for the enforcement, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Well, and they changed it this last year. They changed some of that and they added more, because I know they added the work zone and they added a bunch of other stuff because the school zones, because they were having issues with this. And there was like 7,000 tickets wrote in the first month for work zone infractions. So
I mean, you'd want to place them in appropriate locations and it should be data driven. If council wants to entertain a presentation to come back and talk about those cameras with the new changes in legislation, I'm sure staff would be happy to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd like to direct staff to go ahead and give us some further information on the legislative changes to that. And with this data overlay as comparison for that. Also, it's not, the irony doesn't fall far. A whole bunch of those infractions are right in front of Wake's driving school. If those people would just pull in there and pay a few $100 and maybe get some education, could be effective. But
I'm going to second that motion if that's a motion.
It's not a motion, it's direction, but
Direction.
I would like to at least get 4 people so that,
I support, I support, let's get
Okay.
more, I'd like to see more information, wrap up a little bit more on the data. And then what's it going to take? What's the cost going to be? I know that we can do some leasing versus purchasing of equipment and what does that look like? And there's got to be some notice. And so what are all those requirements? So that'd be great to have.
Rob, if you could redo your presentation from earlier this year.
and I want to, can we clarify for staff, red light and speed or both?
Yes.
Both.
Both.
Okay. Both. Anything else?
No, sir, that'll keep me busy for a while. Thank you.
Thank you.
For council.
It's, so that, is that the end of our administrative reports?
Yes.
That'll bring us to council communications. I'm going to go ahead and start us off real quick and then I'll hand it over. I wanted to thank the city manager for stepping up and being part of the chain gang under the Friday night lights. We had 2 no-shows. Not going to name any names, but it was nice to see our city manager step up and actually got pulled out on the field for measurement. Yeah, so it's just always great to see, and it happens all the way up and down our city, people stepping up to help. So appreciate that. Also appreciate Alicia setting up the city cafe. I had some good discussions, a lot of good discussions there. And finally, although Chief stole my thunder on Target Zero, I would give big attaboy to Jeff.
Absolutely will. Thank you.
With that, Deputy Mayor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think it was back in May, we had our retreat with council and we talked about the new public safety tax, sales tax, and what that entailed and where we wanted to go with that. And was a little disappointed that we dropped the ball and did not get the stuff done that we needed to get done to start collecting on that if we chose to by January 1st. And we look at this stuff, we're looking at speed cameras, we're looking at red light cameras. And Chief has given us a couple different presentations on what we need for staffing. And we are now late to the game with other jurisdictions that are going to be taking the 0.1% sales tax or going through the public hearings to do that, and also to submit their grant applications to the CJTC. And so there's a number of things that it disappoints me a little bit, because some of these things are similar to the cops hiring grants that we have done in the past, where with CJTC, they're going to pay for some of that and we pay for some of that. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, that's for new hires with CJTC's grant, correct?
That's correct. And I'm almost certain it applies to laterals as well.
Okay. And so, while these other cities are ramping up and doing this stuff and we haven't, we're going to be waiting in line for positions to go through the academy. There's going to be quite a few of them out there hiring. So we're going to be competing with those other agencies, trying to get that same pool of people that are wanting to go into law enforcement, which is getting fewer and fewer because of the just the nature of where we're at in this country when it comes to law enforcement. And so I would like to make a motion tonight that we approve moving forward with the 0.1% to set the public hearings, but not wait until April to start the hiring process. We have funds to do that. We should start the hiring process. We should get the people in place. We should start looking for the vehicles that we're going to need. We should start planning ahead, because it takes a long time. In the 14 years, going on 15 years I've been on council, this is the first time that we have been fully staffed. And fully staffed is the same amount of people we had when Mr. Nzinga was mayor. And so that just means fully staffed because that's what we authorized. It doesn't mean fully staffed. That's what we need as a department, and that's what we need as a city to keep up with the call volumes and the things that we're asking to be done. And I think there's a direct correlation when we look at these warnings and these speeding and the complaints that we're getting, is because we've had changes and we haven't adapted to those changes. We feel good because we think we're fully staffed, but we're probably not where we should be. And I remember talking about this probably 3 years ago, that where fully staffed should probably be, and we're adding 1,500 people a year out here, and we've got more and more people that are moving out to the North County area, and it's driving more and more people through our city. And so there's more and more workload for our police officers. So I don't want to put a dollar figure on it. I asked that tonight. It's about 650,000 for the 0.1%. There's some things that we have to do. We have to hold a public hearing. There is some debate on that public hearing. I've heard both, that we don't have to hold a public hearing, that we can authorize it. But if we're going to hold a public hearing, that takes about 45 days. And so if we don't do something soon, we won't start collecting it in April either. And so I think we need to move forward with that. And so I'm making a motion that we direct the city to move forward with the hiring of police officers in the anticipation of taking the 0.1% after our public hearings.
Second.
Hold on. I got the second. I want to clarify the motion, because you said you did two motions. One was to do the 0.1 with hiring before April 1st, and the other was to do 0.1 and hiring. And I have a question to staff real quick. Are we eligible for the grant if we hire before? All right, what's the timing on that? Is there a timing issue? Can we hire before, and then do we not get the grant if we've hired? Do we know?
As far as I know, it operates much like the Department of Justice, to where it has to be an unfunded position that you're adding. So it can't be an existingly funded position. Thank you. budgeted. It's late, a budgeted position, so it would have to come after we get the grant.
After the hearing, but not before the collection. The collection of sales tax probably
I'm
not,
talking about the grant piece. So when we're talking about the grant through CJTC, not the 0.1%.
so, and that's why I asked the question. So, but you can apply for the grant as soon as you pass the 0.1. You don't have to necessarily collect on it.
Correct. If they're not saying one or the other,
I just want to make
they're
sure
giving
that this,
grace, but CJTC hasn't come out with their stuff yet.
You can apply for the grant. You can let CJTC know that we intend to apply for the grant, and we should have already done that.
We did.
So
We
we
did.
already
They-
told them we're.
They
intending
wanted to just get an idea of agencies out there. And so it was just an estimate. We answered that a couple months ago.
Okay.
I'd like
But
to
and I want to
call-
make sure that we're clear on, this is a grant program that's ran through the
Sorry.
CJTC, that Mayor's Department of Justice, there's still grant opportunities through the Department of Justice that are identical. Just want to make sure we do that.
But to take the 0.1%, the grant is on top of the 0.1%. The
Correct.
0.1% is what Chief had gave us a presentation on with the 4 officers and 2 cars or 3 cars or whatever it was. And then the grant opportunities would come through CJTC.
I just want to make sure that we're not
Yeah.
missing
no,
it. That's my Councilmember Ferrer.
And I wanted to do a call to question before Counselor Overholser jumped in and seconded it, because we're making a motion on an item that's not on our agenda. I fully support moving forward on this. I would feel more comfortable with us putting it, making it like us as a council voting, making a motion saying, hey, can we put this on the next council meeting? Have all of this data ready for us to make an informed decision, and then we can jump on it right then and there. Again, I just don't feel comfortable making a motion and doing a vote like this. We don't have an item on, this item has not been
So,
placed on our.
so how I understand the motion is to direct staff to bring this back to city, not to start the 0.1. So this is basically just, instead of giving a thumbs up, thumbs down for direction, we're actually voting for direction. It was a motion to force a vote for direction, is how I understand that? Is that,
Yes.
or
I took the same way.
Okay.
Usually we don't make a motion to direct staff. We're just like, hey, mayor, it's like thumbs up. Anybody want to make the staff?
But we had already made that direction in our, we already made that direction in our retreat, and we have not heard of it. And that's why I'm here making that motion, is because it has not happened, and now we will not be able to collect until April. So it's put us off even further. And if we're waiting to do any recruiting or any of that kind of stuff, because we haven't authorized these positions, it takes, we're talking 2 years before we can get somebody in and on the streets by themselves. And so that's the reason why, and because we're competing with the other jurisdictions that are doing it. So that's why I'm bringing it up here, is because it has not been brought up. And I don't want to wait until budget cycle and all that stuff and then approve it in January to start recruiting. We should be recruiting right now.
Sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around all of it. Is if so you want to, obviously we have to hold a public hearing in order, well, we don't have to, like you're saying, that's kind of iffy, right? So, but if we want to provide the opportunity and do the public hearing, to get that 1%, what's that?
0.1.
0.1, thank you. 0.1% for the safety sales tax. Are you making a motion to say, while we're waiting for these steps, let's start the hiring process?
No, I'll make that motion when it comes, because we'll figure out, we'll figure out, I mean, we need to keep our hiring process open, but we want to make sure that we can get the CJTC money. So we don't want to give a number. We don't want to say we want to hire 4 positions, and then CJTC would only cover 2 positions on top of that. We would have to fund the 4 positions, and then CJTC would fund position 5 and 6. And so as long as there's a position there, they consider that already funded. And so then they would not give us a grant for those positions. It would be additional positions on top of that.
What's the cutoff for that grant?
Well, they're already starting to accept applications right now for it. So
The CJTC's got the cart before the horse. The entire process was supposed to go through them first. They've realized that was problematic. So they said, we're going to trust you. Go ahead, you can implement your 0.1% of sales tax. If you gave us a handshake that said that you are in compliance. Problem is, there's a couple classes, there's a couple HB 2015 outlines what we have to do. There's a couple that they still have not implemented. So we're all kind of standing in line with CJTC saying, when are you going to release this so we can be in full compliance?
There is a grace period though, so we don't have to be in compliance today to implement the 0.1%.
So maybe what we need to do
So-
is give direction to staff to bring this to the next council meeting on the 6th and have that be the moment where we can set a public hearing and
I was gonna say, I do believe this requires a public hearing, so just to clarify the motion, I would assume that it's having staff bring forward a draft ordinance in order to review and set for public hearing at the next meeting.
but if we set the public hearing at the next meeting and we give 45 days notice for public hearing, now we're pushing out. And that's my concern is we've kicked this can way too far down the road already and we're way behind all these other cities. And I don't really care about the
second meeting in
1%
December.
or the CJTC stuff. I care about the recruiting because we're trying to recruit against everybody else that is 2 months ahead of us. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, for the April 1st deadline, we'd have to execute it, pass it by the first meeting in January. So I don't think the timing's the issue on this. And also, as we were discussing today, at least for Vancouver and Clark County, I don't know about the little cities, but I doubt it. I don't think anyone has implemented this tax yet officially. I don't
Maybe
think,
not in Southwest Washington,
yeah,
but
right,
there
in-
are cities
in
that
this
are doing.
county,
And
in this county.
that's my concern. Like I said, my concern isn't the money. Because the money, if we take the 0.1%, the money's there. My concern is that we have stopped recruiting. We're not putting anybody on a list. We're not pushing anyone through the process. And that process takes so much time. Every week we get weekly reports. And those weekly reports will say the same thing. Lateral in process, lateral in process, lateral in process for months. And it takes so long to get those people there. Now we're competing with everybody else that's already 2 months ahead of us saying, hey, we're going to take this. And they've budgeted for it or they're taking those positions. And we're not going to be competitive. And not just that, it's the fact that when you have this big influx of officers, we can't get them into the academy. And so the longer we can't get them in the academy, the more we have to pay to keep them here. We saw that during COVID with not getting people in. We got them in, and then they quit. And so you're paying them the minute we can hire them, we may pay them for 3, 4, 6 months to work for us until we can get them academy date. And it just prolongs how long it takes to get them on the street. And so that's my concern is we've waited longer than we should have, and we should have had the public hearings. We should have had all that stuff ready and then continued to recruit. So I know we've got to go through that process. I've heard mixed reports about the public hearing. I don't care what it is. We just need to figure out what it is and get moving so that we can continue to recruit while everyone else is.
Is that the question? Is that the way the grant works? Is whoever jumps in, first come, first served? Or it's a period of time? You have the opening and you have the shut. And then based on that, they're going to look at, who's going to get it. So again, I don't understand why it's rushed by 2 weeks.
The grant program, as far as I know, it's a very competitive process.
Right.
Just like
The
it's
con-
very similar to the amounts, 125,000 over 3 years, has to be new positions, just like Department of Justice does. I don't know what the survey generated in terms of information from jurisdictions from counties and cities across the state and how many, raised their hand and said, yeah, we're going to hire new ones and what that would amount to. But 125,000 for one officer spread out over 3 years is really a drop in the bucket. I think that they put $100 million into this grant cycle is my understanding.
Okay, so I want to make sure that I have this motion correct.
Please reread it, Mayor.
So how I heard the motion was direct staff to start the process to bring forward to council the 0.1% public safety sales tax with hiring before April 1st.
Yes.
So was that the intent of the motion?
Yes.
You still okay with your second?
Yes, sir.
And then my question, that hiring will not preclude us from any grants.
Just a point of clarification. We're actually hiring right now. I never thought I'd say this term. We have an overhire right now because we have another officer that's gone back on military leave. And so I felt comfortable doing that. We have a resolution in place that authorizes the city manager to already do that. Just to clarify.
So
Under-
another question, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Mike.
I just want to, but my question was either COPS grant or whatever acronym alphabet soup, the other grants coming from. Hiring before April 1st won't preclude us from any of those grants.
It would have to be an additional position above the ones that you're authorizing to hire. So if you authorize, say, 2 right now, then your additional 2 or 3 could be the grant funded with COPS.
Okay.
My concern is by us voting, because Chief Flynn, you said that the only way we could get the grant is because they put the cart before, the horse before the wagon, whatever, sorry. I don't want to lose my train of thought here. And so I feel like, so they're coming at it with just a handshake saying, kind of like the city is, going to be, we'll give you this if you're willing to give us a handshake saying, yeah, we're going to go forward with this safety sales tax.
Now, let me, maybe I misspoke.
Oh, okay.
They're two separate entities. HB 2015 is the state grant funded program that allows for us to receive grant monies for new hires, but you have to meet these conditions. Under the 0.1% sales tax that would be councilmatic, it was initially, and city manager, please correct me if I'm wrong, it was intended that you had to meet the requirements that was outlined under CJTC for their grant. That was the whole intent, so that they knew that municipalities, when they were applying, that they would have met all these provisions. The problem became that the CJTC did not have everything established and ready, and municipalities wanted to enact the 0.1% sales tax. That's where they said, all right, if you've told us you've met that, you can go ahead and enact your sales tax initiative, because it is separate. So they're two separate, but they're just combined in that they wanted the requirements met. And Megan and I and Chris met this afternoon, and there appears to be a little bit of leeway that's in there as far as meeting some of the requirements. All that being said, if I understand the mayor correctly, is let's make sure that we're not going to hire people and not be able to get our grant funds in addition to that. So this will give us time to make sure we have those answers and can provide those answers when we come back.
We've used the similar one to this through COPS. That's what our SROs were through. And so it's just adding a position. So you can add the position. They'll pay for percentages of it for up to 3 years. We cover the other percentage. And
Year 4 it's on us.
Year 4 it's on us. And so that's all it is. The CJTC stuff is separate from the 1%. It's just a pot that we can go after to get some of that money to use for hiring.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. to direct staff to bring this back for council with more information regarding the point one, timing on grants, and if possible, well, I'm adding the if possible, hiring as soon as possible as grants provide is how I would.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is not any action that's binding other than staff bringing back to,
Bringing forward. Okay.
we good?
Yep, we good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any further council communications? Cherish, you had 20 things? Oh,
I just had a quick question for staff. Pickleball signs, we have an update when that's going in?
what signs? Oh,
Yeah, for the time, yeah, because I guess they've been having problems with people coming up and there's no signs to enforce, so.
I was just there yesterday. We don't have the signs up. I did ask Grant, who said he was going to get back to me tomorrow, but assuming they're going to be here this week is
Okay.
my guess, but
Okay.
for the, there's a few signs. I think the one you're probably the most interested in is the hours
Yeah.
of operation.
okay, with that, the next regular city council meeting will be held Monday, October 6th at 7 PM with a study session at 6 PM, chaired by your deputy mayor. With that, this meeting's adjourned.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to get data on how much the change of speed affected it. I'll just put those out, but get it again, see how much data. And I think Joan got that last data last week, so hopefully anytime.